What is your story, Joe Rogan, about sightseeing?
About sightseeing?
Yeah, I got it wrong. You called me out that I got your story wrong about sightseeing and
the Grand Canyon.
this is what the bit is about. The bit is about that we are on a rock flying through the universe, which is the most spectacular thing anybody could ever possibly imagine, and yet nobody brings it up ever. People talk about crazy, boring, mundane things when we are on a rock flying through space, and that never comes up. And that above you is the most spectacular thing you could ever look at ever, and yet people take these huge trips to go see the Grand Canyon, and they'll like stare like, oh my God, it's amazing, you have to see it. And, it changes your life. And I'm like, how about up there? Like, look at all that.
Speaking of flying through space, you don't think the moon landing is real?
No, I don't. No. Do you?
Yeah.
Why do you think the moon landing is real? Why don't you tell me why?
I saw it on television.
Oh, you're a genius. Oh, beep that. Hit
okay,
that.
we'll bleep it. No, it's okay. We got
That's genius. You saw it on TV? That's awesome. I'm going to show you some CGI. I'm going to show you King Kong. I saw that on TV, too. There's an 80-foot gorilla. He's running around kidnapping white chicks. You should check it out. 1972 was the last time a human being has been through the Van Allen radiation belt. 1972. That's the last time. There's been only 7 trips ever that human beings have ever gone past 400 miles. Every single space station mission, every space shuttle, every satellite, all of those are inside the protective Van Allen radiation belts, which start at 1,000 miles. They go from 1,000 miles to, depending on who you ask, if you ask NASA, 24,000 miles. If you ask James Van Allen, the guy who discovered it, it's 67,000 miles of intense radiation that's in a gigantic donut band that covers around the Earth. Now, even if you got outside of that band, you have to deal with solar cycles. There's the apex of a 20-year solar cycle was between 1969 and 1972. All the time when these guys are making those missions. Any one of those guys out there in those tiny little aluminum shielded crafts would have been killed instantly during any solar flare.
Why fake it?
Thank you, Carlos.
Why not fake it?
You should open with that.
If you look at any of the footage online, it looks ridiculous. It looks stupid. If you look at the videos, it looks ridiculous and dumb. You know why? Because in 1969, nobody anticipated that we were going to have VCRs and the internet. We were going to be able to watch that. They wanted to win the Cold War. The Soviet Union's had over 10 firsts in space. First man in space, first woman in space, they had everything. First dog in space. They had first satellite. They were so much more advanced than the Americans were. But the Americans were more advanced in trickery. And that's what they did. They figured out a way to fake it. That's why when Neil Armstrong got back, first of all, he went insane. They went into a deep depression. So did Buzz Aldrin. He became a huge alcoholic. He gave no interviews. Neil Armstrong still to this day will not give interviews. He gave one speech that he gave at the 25th anniversary of the moon landing. And this is what he said in front of America's best honor students. He said, "We have here amongst us America's best and brightest." And the quote was, "You will achieve many great things if you could peel away one of truth's hidden layers." That's a speech this guy gives standing in front of the top honor students of the country. Not, "I went to the moon." He doesn't say that. He gives this cryptic speech. Now, Bill Clinton, in page 100, I think it's 156 of his book, My Life, he gives this story about how when he was a kid, he was working with this carpenter. And this carpenter said, "I don't believe man landed on the moon." It was 3 months after the moon landing. And he said, "I thought that guy was ridiculous." He said, "You know what? I don't believe anything those TV fellows show you." He said, "After 8 years in the White House, I thought maybe that guy was ahead of his time."
Wow.
This is in Bill Clinton's autobiography.
Wow.
This is in his book. There's no way people went on the moon. There's no way.
By the way,
it's impossible today. China wants to go back to the moon. They don't even have a clue how to do it. They're going to try to get there in 2020. America thinks we could possibly go back in 2017. All of the hard data, the telemetry data, 14,000 reels is missing. No one can find it. What the telemetry data
Isn't that amazing?
That's the binary
Isn't that
data,
amazing?
the ones and the zeros that show the distance between the command module and the Earth during every step of the way, on the way to the moon and back, which you can't fake. They don't have that. They can't find it. Which you would think would be in a locked golden vault in the Smithsonian. But no, they can't find it. Well, they say, well, they placed laser reflectors on the moon. You could shoot a laser beam. That's proof. Well, it's not proof, because the Russians did it twice with unmanned probes. The Russians also collected space samples and samples of the moon.
Very amazing, and I've had these guys on. And
Which guys?
The different guys on the internet that are behind.
There's a lot of guys, and I've debated that one guy, that Phil Plait from Battleship. I clown that guy.
The guy that gets in every astronaut's face.
Well, that guy's a crazy Christian, and he's nuts. Which is, you know what, you have to be a little crazy to look that deep into this theory, because it seems so solid. We went to the moon. It seems so solid until you look into it.
But here's the only thing. We can't keep anything quiet in this country.
It doesn't matter. No one's keeping it quiet.
Everybody
you can go look at it.
The astronauts,
those guys are afraid of their lives. Gus Grisham, the pilot who was the guy who died on the launch pad along with 2 of his friends, he was a public critic of NASA. He put a lemon, he hung it on the simulator, put a lemon and put it on a hanger and hung it. He was dead in that same cockpit. He died like 2 weeks later. He burned to death inside of that. They were terrified. This is a matter of life and death. These guys were in the middle of a huge Cold War between Russia, and they wanted to show that America had technological superiority. The race to the moon landing, all that stuff is not about going to the moon and collecting things. It's about military superiority. It's about the ability to do things with military technology. All that stuff they use for NASA, all the stuff they use for the stealth bomber, the space shuttle, all those missions, it's not for philanthropy missions. That's to fuel the military-industrial complex. The machine behind this is all the military. And getting to the moon first is making a statement that we have military technological superiority over Russia, and that's what they did.
Is Bigfoot real?
I don't know. You tell me.
You got a pretty
If you
good,
look into it,
got a pretty
man,
good
the
argument.
more you look into it,
You've got a pretty
look,
good
every photograph of the moon looks goofy. There's intersecting shadows that show more than one light source. And you can try to explain any one of these things away, which many people do. But the problem is when you look at them all together...
Joe, we're not on for 10 hours.
Mancow.